Why is it so hard to decarbonize aviation, to bring the sector to net zero? I'm joined today by Clara Pfeffer. She's one of the most prolific TV journalists in Germany. She is capital correspondent of the largest private TV station, RTL. And you're an aviation expert. You're running a podcast series on climate change topics in specific sectors such as cement, aviation and so forth. Clara, what's your view on this? Why is it so tough in aviation?
Well, thank you for the honor. I think one of the biggest issues that we have to keep in mind, especially when we look at this problem from Germany, from a small and privileged country, is that we have a big share of the world's population that has so far never even stepped into a plane. It's about 80% of the people that live on Earth at the moment have never seen a plane from the inside. And that share is going to become smaller because people are getting wealthier all over the world. Luckily, we see that change and people want to fly.
As you've spoken, we've seen excerpts from the new fact sheet we've just released of the increase in demand curve and how current measures are not sufficient to drive the sector to net zero. Now, I know in one of your previous interviews or also the podcast, you've touched upon a topic that's special about aviation, because we're not just talking carbon dioxide, right?
Exactly. One of the biggest issues is actually the contrails. They make up about 2/3 of the warming effect of flying, and that is something that can be changed a little bit more easy. There are ways to fly at different heights, to fly different routes in order to at least make this effect smaller. We don't, that's something that's a low-hanging fruit, I would say, that we could start touching right now.
Which is something we're trying to promote as well, or we're trying to draw attention to, contrails and other non-CO2 effects. And this is basically talking about regulating this and getting this sector further, coming to the international component. It's not something within the borders of a country, but we usually talk, especially when we talk the big effects, we talk international collaboration, international regulation. So that's a third pillar, right, in the difficulty of bringing this sector to net zero.
I think you touched one of the most difficult points of them all, because we know that international regulation, international rules are incredibly difficult. We're at the International Climate Conference at the moment, and we see how much work it means to change a small sentence in one paper. It takes weeks, months, years of negotiations, and when it comes to international air travel, that will mean a lot of talks and a lot of looking into what targets can be met by the international aviation industry, and I think that's one of the most difficult points that we really need to have an eye on.
Another reason to stress what kind of important work you're doing here with giving this attention to these fields and also to these technical elements. And talking about the technical segments, I would like to loop in one of our experts, Ingrid El Helou, and she'll guide us through the main technologies that can decarbonize aviation, from electric airplanes to hydrogen and SAF, sustainable aviation fuels. Ingrid, please join us from Paris.
Thanks so much, Peter, and hi everyone. Let's quickly run through these technologies that we've been hearing about. Starting with battery electric planes, those will be most suited for short distance flights up to about 500 kilometers in range. That's mainly due to the battery technology itself. So in the future, if we would like to travel longer distances on an all-electric plane, then we require advancements in battery technology. When it comes to hydrogen has its own set of challenges in terms of sourcing, transporting and storing the hydrogen. What seems feasible by 2050 is having short to medium haul flights being serviced by hydrogen up to about several thousand kilometers in range. In the future, if we would like to travel longer distances on a hydrogen plane, then we need to design and optimize planes for hydrogen use. Finally, SAFs. SAFs have the benefit of being considered drop-in fuels where planes do not require modifications for their use. However, we need to ramp up production in order to meet demand and ensure a minimum standard of sustainability when using SAFs, because SAFs can be produced in many different ways. Thank you so much.
So we've just heard what kind of long-term challenge decarbonizing aviation is, and that it's an international challenge. I'm pleased to be joined by Eleanor Webster of Mission Innovation. Thanks for joining us at COP28. Now, what is your perspective? Why is the international collaboration so important in this context?
I think we know, as with many transport sectors, that these things cross borders. So a plane takes off from a country, it lands somewhere different. There's airports, there's fueling companies, there's all sorts of stakeholders involved there, and not one single country can solve that alone. And this is where international collaboration comes in. So Mission Innovation brings together member countries to tackle these kind of issues, and we actually have a sustainable aviation fuel community which do exactly this, and that's a real effective platform for bringing in the private sector as well.
And what would you say, how can we speed things up faster, be it in shipping, be it in aviation? What would help this international collaboration?
I think the key thing is learning from each other, because I think we really know what the problems are, but I think it's about how do we work together to really solve those issues. So how do we get that infrastructure in the right place? What route should we prioritise? But it's not just about the fuel switch, it's also about, are there anything else we can do? Because it's going to take a while to think about what a viable replacement for fossil fuels is going to be for the aviation industry. So should we be prioritising particular routes? Should we be thinking about how we move around? It's these kind of questions which we need to work together on, because we're running out of time and we know what we need to do, but there's a whole host of different solutions.
So let's hear it one more time from Clara Pfeffer. You mentioned 80% of the world have never boarded a plane, but of course there's a middle class growing in countries like India and elsewhere. Record jet orders by many airlines. You've just returned a couple of weeks ago from a trip to India. What makes it so special in these countries? How do you perception on flying in these countries?
India is absolutely fascinating and crucial when we want to tackle climate change. It has the biggest population of the world, and it is just fascinating to see how, of course, they also want to fly. They have been seeing that dream on TV. For most people there, it has been a dream so far, and now more and more people get to go and travel and maybe also just visit family, because they have people working all over the country or all over the world. So it's something that I think we cannot tell them not to do. We just have to find a way how to decarbonize it and how to communicate this. I think that is crucial, because right now they're seeing these discussions in Europe where people are like, oh no, you shouldn't fly, that's not good, and making you feel bad about it. And that's not helpful, at least when you look into these countries.
So we've heard about how hard it is to decarbonize aviation, we've heard the technological solution, and we've heard Clara's perspective of somebody who is seeing the discussion in other countries as well, especially in emerging economies. Let's hear it from Brussels now. What can we do at the European level to decarbonize aviation faster, to limit the effect of aviation on global warming?
Thank you, Peter, and hi everyone. My name is Marlène Siméon, and I am EU Policy Manager with Future Cleantech Architects in Brussels. So internationally and at EU level, we believe that more coordinated efforts should be looked into three areas: in taxation, in sustainable aviation fuel mandates, and in contrails and non-CO2 emissions avoidance. So alternative modes, taxation, innovation, monitoring, and coordination are the crucial elements to make a difference urgently. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Clara. Thank you everybody for dialing in. Follow the fact sheet series, The Basics and the Gaps. Look at the info movies, and in particular listen to Klimalabor by NTV. Clara's moderating that together with a colleague, and stay tuned for more to come.